My name is Godfrey Koti. I'm the head of corporate affairs here at ZTA. We were elated, to say the least, on the announcement that came from Cabinet from yesterday, and we are looking forward to getting back into tourism. What Corona had done was to deplete the entire sector, but now we have an opportunity to rebuild, to start afresh. But what is more exciting, and which is the one takeaway from Corona, is that every destination is starting from ground zero, and we can compete equally. Of course, there's some advantages that other destinations will have, and one that we also have, and a couple of others as well. But we're really excited and ready to go. We're looking forward to getting back into business.
Okay, what are the timelines?
We had been working throughout the lockdown because we knew that at some point we were going to have to come back into business. So we started by working on what we call the tourism recovery and growth strategy. Of course, our target is to hit a $25 billion industry within the next 5 years or so. And of course, this is driven by the visionary our minister, Mawuzita Mangaliswa Ndlovu, is pushing that immensely. So we worked quite hard during the lockdown to come up with that particular metrics or action plan, so to speak. And it focuses largely on 3 elements. Element number 1 is domestic tourism. Element number 2 is regional tourism. The third element is then international tourism. Yes, we've opened international borders, but you know that there will be a lot of, curiosity, so to speak, from travelers. They would want to know if things are in place and all that. So that's why we put it as the third phase of our story. The second phase of our story is the regional market. We are looking at Africans coming into Zimbabwe, or those that are based in Africa to come into Zimbabwe and visit Zimbabwe, from Malaysia and a business perspective. So these are the ones that are going to be our ambassadors into the international market. Phase 1, which is the domestic tourism, is both me and you. We need to travel, number 1, to save the industry from the heartbreak that it got during this pandemic. We are going to be focusing on building again ambassadors that will take us into the African market and give confidence into that market to say, hey, Zimbabwe is actually ready for tourism, it's actually safe to tour. So those are the key elements. And then of course we are looking at development and investment, which were already pillars that were within our strategy prior to the COVID pandemic.
Mm-hmm. Obviously, the biggest question right now, Chief Koti, is on safety of all travelers, be it domestic, regional, or international. What are the measures that, probably from your point of view, are putting in place to ensure that those who are coming inside the country or those who would want to leave the country are safe from the COVID-19?
In terms of safety, from a hospitality and tourism industry perspective, we are working with very strict and stringent guidelines and protocols that have come from the World Health Organization and are being enforced by the Ministry of Health and Childcare in Zimbabwe. And us as the Zimbabwe Tourism Authority, we are the agency that is in charge of compliance of these safety procedures and guidelines that have been put in place, particularly within the tourism facilities. So your restaurants, your hotels, your tourism activity areas. We are charged with making sure that people are following these guidelines, and this in turn will give the necessary confidence to the market. And we are definitely prioritizing that much more than the marketing itself, which is why we were actually made in the first place. But we are definitely prioritizing enforcing compliance from our players.
Yeah. Obviously, the compliance and enforcing they are like two difficult things to do. So how exactly are you going maybe to make sure that those who are coming in comply and you enforce the regulations?
We have a monitoring team at ZTA that gives all the standards, make sure that all the standards are in place. There are of course a unit that could do with a lot more human resource. They're a department that can be, beefed up in terms of financial resources as well to make sure that they cover more areas. But what is pleasing is also that, from our understanding, is that we also have law enforcement agencies getting into the story in a very big way to make sure that all these facilities are compliant to these guidelines and protocols. And of course, we will be looking forward to working well with our industry, hoping that they will also take this seriously, because the thing is, if one particular facility, for example, after it doesn't take these guidelines and protocols seriously, and one tourist comes into the country and they fall sick or they catch the virus somehow, it's definitely the end of Zimbabwe as a tourism destination. So that's something that we are not going to let up on. We're definitely going to be even tougher this time around on all these conditions that are supposed to be met by the players themselves. If they are willing to get back into business, there's no excuse. They just have to comply.
Domestic tourism, it's been one of the things that you've been pushing, I think, for the past 2-3 years now. And if you can allow me to say this, COVID-19 has become sort of a necessary evil, because we saw a lot of players reducing their prices, maybe at half price, 3/4 or something like that. Now that we are opening up, are we likely to see reverting back to the old prices? Because people have always complained that domestic tourism is very expensive and beyond the reach of many Zimbabweans.
There are two things there, Lovejoy. You know I love to answer that question, although it always stokes a lot of controversy. There are two things involved. Number one is that Zimbabwe generally does not have a travel culture. So by that we mean, for me to travel, whether there is the economical issues or not, we generally are a country that did not have this culture. It's something that's new to us. So for me and you to say we want to go to Inyanga, for example, we want to dig into our pockets right now and expect the money to be there. Yet our counterparts who travel from outside will take time to save up for that trip. So we need to find ourselves promoting that culture as individuals first. Then the complaints become slightly lower. Then the second issue, which is the issue of pricing, that I want to address is, unfortunately, we've had a Zimbabwe that has always opened up its market to foreigners and didn't really look into the domestic market. For example, the pricing is definitely outward looking. It's not for the current economic conditions. So we have engaged the industry to say, can we try by all means possible to look into the pricing issue to make it better somehow. Of course, there is the cost of doing business, which then comes in the way somehow. That particular end of things is something that we've tried to address by putting out all these incentives, trying to negotiate with our sister parastatals such as Zimbra, where the taxation regime is also looked into to ease, the burden on the tourism operator, to make it slightly cheaper for me and you to be able to explore and travel our nation, because the tourism dollar really goes a long way. It's not just going to the hotel only.
What is the impact of COVID-19 on our domestic tourism? And then maybe you can also touch on international tourism.
The impact on our domestic tourism is immense, Lapton. immense, in the sense that there are jobs that have been lost, which we're going to try and recover as quick as we can. The impact also is just generally even on the maintenance of properties and facilities was hard hit, and there are some businesses that have closed down because of COVID, and that affects the domestic market in some way. But in terms of the promotional side, I think, like has been earlier alluded to in the interview, that it's a necessary evil in some way. It has given us the impetus to even draw down and put our heads together with the industry. The Tourism Business Council is helping us out immensely in negotiating and coming up with packages that are more friendly to the Zimbabwean pocket and its difficult economic environment. So you will see a lot more reduced pricing, or a lot more sensitive pricing. I think that's one takeaway that we've gotten from Corona, but in absolutely nothing else other than that. Things have been very difficult for business. It's been extremely hectic, to say the least. I think it's also still very random, but yeah. From an international perspective, I think it's the difference is purely the same. The hardest hit places are those that were dependent on international travelers, which Zimbabwe generally is, about 80% of its visitors are international. So we're really affected badly. And places like Victoria Falls, Kariba, they shut down because there was no activity really, even before we imposed the lockdown. When the international market coughs, we catch a cold. But we are hoping that with the opening of the airports and relaxation of the lockdowns, we will probably have a visitor or two, which will kickstart the tourism industry again. But there's something that we are looking forward to, the travel revenge. I'm sure you will attest to the fact that you were actually bored of staying at home. So is someone who's in Australia, so is someone who's in Croatia, Germany, France. They want to come to Africa. They want to experience Africa. And also, again, it's summer in Africa now. And it's going to be winter very soon out in Europe. So we're looking forward to those source markets to start deploying tourists to come back here and catch the breeze in Zimbabwe and the fresh air, in the world of wonders.
All right, lastly, around about this time, we always have the Sanganai Hlanganani. What are the plans? No? Nothing?
I have to let the cat out of the bag. There's a statement that's coming. There's something very exciting that is being done. So we're definitely having Sanganai, alas, in a virtual manner. So we're going to make an announcement probably later on today, to let you know what exactly is happening and how we're going through it.
Okay. For these and other stories, visit our website www.263chat.com. Follow us on Twitter @263chat and like our Facebook page 263chat.